19. Before you have an agenda for the work session and also the business meeting. And first item on our work session agenda is to review the business meeting agenda. Look at that. Following our welcome and pledge, we have a recognition that we'd like to present to the council for information. We have a family, Jenny Jackson with her daughter Tatum and son Gabe. They have took it upon themselves to do a recognition of our public safety, both fire and police. And first they want to talk about a fire recognition. If you know, we had the Wildlands firefighter Matthew Pichette, who passed away a little over a year ago.
Yeah, August 13th was 1 year.
And so Tatum would like to present this to Mike, who will share with the family, and also Mike will give a little bit of history and background behind Matthew, who worked for UFA, who sadly lost his life a year ago unexpectedly. And we have a few photos and things of his memorial that was put together, I understand.
I have a picture of the front and the back of the plaque so folks in the audience can see it, and I have a couple of pictures of Matty doing his best work in wildland, which are some fun photos. And then I also have a photo of the back of the bike jersey that we're going to wear for Lotage on September, this coming September. And we use the artist's rendering of the area where he was when tragedy struck, and that's on the back pocket of our jersey. We're going to write in his memory, but I have that on there because it's just uncanny how close her drawing of the area was to where he actually was. And I showed that to her at Butlerville Days, and she thought it was pretty neat, so I thought I would show that again and just help her understand how significant this really is.
And I'm assuming you will pass this on the show with the family and
Yes.
whatever.
Yes, absolutely. I will have it in command staff, and then I will present it to his brother, Chief Burchett, who is riding with us on Saturday.
And also, Gabe, who was watching his sister do this presentation, felt that he wanted to do something. He really strong thing for public safety as far as police officers. So Gabe will be presenting something similar to what I'll do to you.
Great.
Okay. So that's the request. Then we will have citizen comments. Then we'll have, following citizen comments, got a public comment on proposed outdoor lighting ordinance. And Matt, I'm sure you'll be there to introduce that for us. I'm excited for that. And a lot of feedback from the community that good about it. I'm excited about the progress we've made. So we'll take public comment on that. And
So just for the ordinance as it's currently written encourages but does not require single-family residences to comply. Is that correct?
yeah, we're going to go through it and hit this in our work session also. I've got a few questions too on exceptions. We'll come back to that in a minute. We'll take public comment as well. We have 3 action items. We have an appointment to the Arts Council. Laura Garcia, I don't know her. If you've interviewed her.
Yes, I've interviewed her. She has a great background, with both her education and her experience. She used to be on the Midvale Arts Council and has taught even in the arts areas, and she'll be great. In my opinion, I'm recommending.
Yeah. Was she good today or?
I don't think she will.
Okay. All right. Item number 2 for action is, I'm excited about this as well, is new local agreement with Salt City Public Utilities regarding East Jordan Canal Trail. Remember, that's that small piece from District 1 from Fort Union Boulevard, goes along the trail and connects to the north
Fort
side.
Union is the back of the park.
North Mountain Park, north side Mountain Park. And I know that there's a little bit of a question with the director of Salt City Public Utilities, but I think we'll go through it.
We're working with them right now. In fact, I talked to Laura this afternoon about it and getting everything finalized related to attachments, exhibits, things.
Yeah, and this is something that we have fully funded and ready to go, so.
If I may add, we still obviously have design to do, we need to reach out to the residents, which will be part of the process, but this is our first step, making sure that we can go forward and do what we need to do to prepare for the project. And so this is important, obviously, to make sure Salt Lake is forward.
This is one of those things that's been, when we first incorporated and this was open, and it was, the water was getting out, and we had debates about whether it was coming from the canal or not, or what.
It's flooding basements.
It was too bad. The fact that we're even here now is amazing. I wanted to work with people. Laura hasn't done that one, but it was always interesting to get that demonstrated, that they cooperated.
Throughout the United States.
12 or 15-year projects.
Yeah, throughout the United States, where we have canals or old railroads, it's the natural right of way to do trails and connectivity because it already connects so many communities. So this is a start and a good legacy to get something in place.
Mayor, I just wanted to alert the council that I modified the resolution just a bit from the one I sent out. We sent out the other day to basically say that if there are any late-breaking changes that are required, being required by Salt Lake City before they will sign, that the mayor and manager in consultation with the city attorney can make appropriate changes to the form of the agreement that the council is approving so that we can not have to come back repeatedly as we work through the final details with Salt Lake City.
All right, thank you. Item 5.3, remember the briefing last week on the proposed acceptance of Lexi Lane as a city road. Tonight, the resolution is not approving the acceptance, because I personally have questions myself, but it's strictly authorizing, directing the inspection of the road and the conditions, and then we'll come back and look at all the facts and make a decision later tonight. But this just authorizes staff to proceed and do the report and inspection back to the council. Any question on any of those items?
Did we talk back to the petitioners on Lexi Lane, are they okay with the kind of conditions that?
Yeah, they're aware of the direction that was discussed last week, which would be requesting that they hire an engineer to do that analysis in consultation with us. But any cost to the city can be offset in this next process.
Yeah, but I've seen other private roads that would not meet construction standards, so I'm.
The key on that one's gonna be how the developer built it.
Okay, moving back to the work session, staff reports, and here, you wanna wait for Kim?
Would be good.
But why don't we just move to item B first and see if Kim comes? So let's go to item B, the outdoor lighting, and maybe let Matt come up and talk a little bit about that, and then if Kim or you can kind of join us and talk about communication plan.
There you go. Okay. A little clicker or? Jones, when I just, alright, notify me, I'll hit. That'll do it.
You just go click, click, and you'll be amazed what happens.
Very good. Okay. So move on to the next slide. So,
Well, before you start, how do you feel about the football game?
disappointed as always.
Oh, okay, just wondered. I thought I'd check.
That's why I don't want to bear the same level of pain as my comrades here.
Some of them slip through the age something.
Yeah, we'll go on to the next slide. Matt.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I did change the slide just a little bit and point out, just in case, this is a fantastic satellite view of the Western Hemisphere. And just that little arrow points out to about where we're at in the spectrum. And overall, We have vast empty spaces of ground. We're nothing like the eastern shoreline and metro areas there. We're awash in light and light pollution.
I was surprised with that much there. Wow.
But yeah, we do generate enough. We're definitely noticeable from space. If we move on to the next slide. So again, we were asked by the council to prepare this ordinance. And just in brief, light pollution is essentially light where it's not wanted. And that can be in our homes while driving, while relaxing. Essentially preventing us, light is a great tool obviously because it allows us to see, but too much of it in the wrong place can also hinder that. And not only can that hinder our personal enjoyment of life, but this results in wasted energy because our spent light is energy, or results from energy, and we're expending on in a situation that's not helpful to us. And so there's no reason to do that. And so what are ways that we can mitigate these problems? Looking over many different sources, many different cities, recommended practices, there are a whole broad range of desired outcomes from regulating lighting. And again, this is, we started this out, number one, to consolidate our various, we already had some lighting ordinances on our books, primarily in our commercial areas. They were not comprehensive, although they were a great start. So we've been doing some good lighting practices in our commercial areas since these ordinances were adopted. But this ordinance will bring those together into one consolidated and comprehensive ordinance, its own chapter in the city code. And one of the goals that we had set forward was make a simple, straightforward ordinance that anybody could use, resident, a developer. Often developers, as we'd like to give them more credit than maybe they're due, in that we think they understand all these issues. Often if we don't approach it in the right way, we're overburdening even their own too, and that what are we trying to do? So clear, straightforward, concise is part of our goal. As far as other outcomes of just having a ordinance that's easily administered and adhered to, we want to have desired outcomes that produce the intended effects, and so we're trying to conserve energy and natural resources. Those are big issues as part of these council sustainability resolution. So these measures should help in some degree to achieve those goals. Improve enjoyment of personal property. Light, again, we talked about being expelled where it's not wanted, can turn to light trespass, create torts and other nuisances that are a detriment. Sorry, I had struggled for that word. A detriment for the enjoyment of your personal private property. Increasing our health and safety. There's been evidence showing that light at the wrong times can actually affect our health multiple ways, not only with being glare situations, creates a safety hazard, create conditions where people can't be seen, but also affect our sleep and changing sleep cycles and patterns. There's also evidence saying that glaring situations can create hot spots of light, which also create dark spots of light, which makes it easier for, in certain situations, for people to hide. So even lighting is part of the goal, not glaring conditions. Improve our ambiance. Lighting goes a long ways to just create a world that we enjoy living in, and that moves into dark skies and being able to enjoy the natural environment. There's also a lot of evidence that light is now drastically affecting ecosystems and wildlife. So these all play in together, and the tools to achieve them meet multiple goals. So if we go on the next slide, this is just a summary. There's really not a lot. Once we boil it down, it seems very overwhelming at first, especially again some of the literature about lighting. But there's about 5 or 6 tools that can be used that achieve multiple objectives. On this chart, full cutoff light fixtures, which make sure the light goes on 9-degree angle or down. We already had a requirement for this in commercial zones, so that's what these red X's are already in place in commercial areas. Height limitations, but there are some other tools that we are introducing into the ordinance that will further help achieve these outcomes, and those include illumination caps, how bright we can light an overall area, the spectrum of that light, the red to ultraviolet bandwidth, and keeping that more into the red bandwidth and yellows. Timer control, we'll talk a little bit about that. That's one way to curb energy consumption and light pollution or overlighting when it's not needed. And also photometric plans. This is something we only had upon request in certain situations, and now this makes this required for all commercial developments. Allows us to have a qualified professional prepare a plan that meets our goals and our ordinances, and allows us to review it to make sure that it's meeting the standards.
The red is what is currently in place in the
There's,
black.
yeah, if we go back to the red, those are currently in place in a lot of our commercial zones.
And the black would be things that would be added by
The new ordinance. Plus it brings it together, so right now some of the commercial standards are a little inconsistent. It'd say slightly different things in different zones, and so this makes all the language one. So yeah, let's move on to the next slide. The applicability is that we apply this to all land uses, except single family homes. I'll clarify why that is in a second, but in several situations these standards would kick in. New construction, anytime that we're increasing a land use or a building by 25% or more. Sometimes we include the term land use because sometimes, say a car lot isn't, I don't think we have any car lots, but that's a good example where you might increase the size of the car lot, but there's no building actually being constructed. Or interior remodels affecting 50% or more of the structure. We can determine that building permit time if that's the case. This was talked about quite at length at the planning commission. This is where they felt they wanted to settle as far as applying the standards. Originally, when we first went to the planning commission, we had presented just a commercial, a non-single family residential standard. They felt strongly that we should prepare standards for single family residential. We did that. I think we have a very good take on a well-balanced and reasonable single family standard that most people can implement in any of these situations. But the final recommendation, the council recommended that we amend the language to make it an optional standard, so as guidelines. So that's something that you'll need to consider, that recommendation from the planning commission about the extent. These standards would still apply in our R2 or multifamily zones, and so, you know, anything beyond single family homes will still have these standards in place with the way it's prepared. Okay, any questions before we move on?
Yeah, that, you said the photometric plan requiring that. How extensive or expensive
So,
is that for a twin home or, for
yeah.
example, of a single unit?
Let me see how exactly have that written. Because there may be an exception to that. Double check. Okay, so the lighting plan, the way we have this written, lighting plan shall be required whenever the applicability of shall be applied.
That would cover number 3 there, I think covers it.
Okay, except for single-family residential properties. So, yeah, in that case of a twin home or a small town home development, I don't have a good sense. I can come back with some cost estimates on that.
Are we talking hundreds of dollars? We're not talking thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, obviously, with a plan like that.
Yeah, I think on a commercial development, it might be in the thousands, but on a small plan, it probably in the hundreds. And that's certainly would be something, I think if you want a density threshold, you know, if it's more than 4 or 8 units, then the plan kicks in, you could certainly consider something like that.
I don't wanna jump ahead, but I know when we reviewed this last time, there was some question on public safety exceptions. And I think I read something in the draft that you included that.
Yes, so, our next slide talks about some amendments since that last discussion. Chief Russo was kind enough to give us some comments and feedback. We've sought to clarify a few things. One, we did amend the definition. This is a technical cleanup of what net acre means. The way I had that drafted was not consistent with industry practices, so we fixed that. Clarification on applicability, thank you to Chief Russo. I had an unfinished thought in that, and so it prompted me to rewrite that provision to be more clear and straightforward and concise, but no substantial change. The main recommendation from our police chief is that the automatic switching controls are recommended rather than required, so requiring a curfew of 11 p.m. and then a certain amount of lights could be kept on for security purposes. Originally we had that, well, we still have it written as 25% of your lights can be maintained for security reasons. It's now written as an optional recommendation.
But that's a good idea, because like an example, we have 2 parks in our city that have tennis court lights.
Yeah.
And often you can drive by and those lights are left on after 11 or 12 o'clock and it should be off at 10. You know, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Athletic field lighting is one good example of.
And then on the public safety, yeah, you're right, there was some comments about that. Right now it reads, upon recommendation by the police and fire department, the illumination and Kelvin thresholds may be exceeded in situations where Mr. Johnson here, or the Community Economic Development Director, finds the increased level is crucial to public safety. I think, and I apologize, I think that we're gonna, oh, that's right, upon recommendation, so Mike will be given the opportunity to adjust those standards upon their recommendation.
Some lights to one reason.
But that allows them to weigh in. I can't think, of many situations that Mike wouldn't follow their recommendation. I'm speaking for him. And then on seasonal lighting was other thing. This one might be something that you have to weigh in is what's the appropriate amount of seasonal lighting, why even regulate it at all. There's some ordinances that do, there's others that don't. We try to come up with a
Like
middle.
holiday lighting.
Yeah. We don't,
Maybe
let's
put
just shut
some
down
whole
all
house.
holiday city.
Yeah.
No. Holiday lighting, yeah, the seasonal lighting. Well, and the reason it's called seasonal is sometimes you see interesting, I have a neighbor that does Easter and 4th of July and I don't know, so, how much is too much? We clarified that in this proposal, and I don't think we're strongly married to any idea on this. If this is a baseline for you to react to. If you feel it's appropriate, that's great. If you feel it needs some changes, that's fine too.
And so this has been posted, so the public has
Yeah.
it, so the comments today will be.
Yeah. But we did make a slight change to it, saying that seasonal decorations can be illuminated rather than displayed. More people, more again, permanent lighting installed in their homes, and some might be at 365 days a year. Some may be illuminated up to 180 non-consecutive days per year. That was the other clarification. So if you have.
Restate that again, the difference between, you said illuminated or
Display.
Displayed, yeah, a lot of people are putting permanent lights down
on their homes?
on their homes, so they'd be displayed.
That's a display, it's attached.
I don't
Displayed
define
is-
display, but we clarify it to say illuminated.
Okay.
But yes, under that, displayed would be attached, illuminated would be turned on.
And you're restricting either, or just the ones that are attached to no
Illuminated.
more than 180 consecutive days?
Now, how do we really enforce that? I don't know if there's really a good answer on that. I think the purpose of the provisions is maybe more of a guideline, and if there was an extreme case of abuse, there's something to fall back on.
Okay, we'll talk more about that.
Quantity wise, there's not like.
It talks
you can have
about
42
unreasonable,
reindeer,
you know.
But you can't have the 43.
Yeah, if you ever remember Christmas, Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, you know, this does talk about individual lamps do not cause unreasonable light trespass or glare as determined by the community development director. That's a pretty ambiguous judgment call, but
What do we do on the commercial right now that judge the trespass?
those are defined. Well, you saying if they put up seasonal lighting?
No, yeah, well,
Oh.
right now, we, if it's commercial property, we have some
Yes.
basis to say, this is what you can't let
That's
go to
right.
the neighbors.
Mhm.
That's right.
It
Would it
generally
make any
says.
sense to duplicate that or bring that over into the residential realm maybe?
Certainly something we could consider if you want to.
Does that make, I mean, yeah, cause like, the one's really ambiguous, it kinda really gets to be as what would Mike do, or what would Matt do, or what would Tim do?
Well, and that's what you find in here with the planning commission's recommendation is we have those standards, there were standards in place for residential. So that language is there, but right now it's, you should do this rather than you shall. If you're doing
So even
residential.
in that case, it's kind of a should, it's not a.
Right, so there's language there for residential, if the council decides to make that a requirement, we can just revise that wording and now it's there and it's been well thought out. But right now it's in as a recommendation, if you're in single family areas.
As optional,
Mm-hmm.
as optional.
It's guidelines.
If we have to make it require, I think we need something probably a little more subjective, objective as to what constitutes the
Yeah,
trespass.
I think if the council decides, you know, where on the spectrum do you wanna be on that issue? Is it something you want to address? If you do wanna address it, do you want to put it as a guideline, or do you want to have something very concrete that if somebody's being unreasonable, we can clearly go out there and enforce it, take out our lights
It
and
needs
stick.
to be subjective, cause you're gonna have one person on the street who does it, and you're gonna have
So that's,
one neighbor who hates the attraction of the cars that are coming to see it, and somebody else who thinks it's awesome that everybody's coming to the street, and you're gonna have.
We just don't want anything you're not willing to enforce.
Yeah.
That's kind of the.
Well, just.
that's the
just
policy,
correct-
that's the policy consideration.
And just for clarification purposes, and correct me if I'm wrong, right now in the single family residential, it's an optional element, so the enforcement is not built into the ordinance the way it's drafted. If you want to build that, if you want to include it as non-optional as a requirement, then we would definitely probably have to beef up the standards to make sure that they're objective standards and consistently enforced.
Have we
Yeah.
had a Griswold family Christmas in the past? Has this been a?
No, I don't think so.
We don't have complaints now.
We've had, there have been times where we've had some with concerns about, in single-family areas, the lighting spilled over into their properties.
But that was lighting.
Just lighting in general.
Lighting.
And that's where, if we
Wasn't Griswold lighting.
revise the recommendations to requirements, those
Need
standards
more
do
work.
become objective. They're written objectively, they're just written right now as optional guidelines.
Well, after public comment today, I'm sure the council will have more discussion with the two members that are not here. And I should, for the record too, that we need to excuse, I should have at the beginning, Councilmember Shelton, who's traveling, as well as Councilmember Michael, who is also traveling and will not be with us tonight. On the dais, if I get to excuse them, somebody please elbow me.
Let's see, is there any slides up?
They've got like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much everything, for the public, or just, and for yourselves, if you wanna study more on this topic, we have a landing site with quite a few resources available to help flesh out this stuff. I have a lot of slides after this, I don't plan on going through with you, but if you have a specific question, a specific term or concept, we can certainly delve into any of those. I have slides for that.
Well, the business meeting will again turn over to you, let you introduce it briefly, and I know I've had a lot of comments from constituents that are very supportive, very interested in this ordinance. And so we'll see how it
Okay.
progresses.
I guess my ask, if it's okay with the others, is maybe you mentioned the seasonal lighting, I feel that should be kept as a option or not, that might be something that
So as you read the proposed ordinance, there's multiple sections that are completely marked out. And maybe you understand the reasoning for that, but what we're doing is, those are existing sections that are built throughout the code. This is combining it all into one area on writing, and concerned about that, so.
Yeah, it's interesting to read through it, really is. It's not as simple as some people think.
Oh, but some of them really can't, I mean, you know, putting shades, you know, on your stuff, using LEDs, keeping the color temperatures appropriate, those are fairly easy to do.
Yeah, and Matt did a lot of great work in his preparation of the ordinance, but that was a big goal, is to make, you know, as we wrote residential standards, we wanted to make it achievable for single-family residents rather than, you know, something that, you know, was expensive or too technical. So the standards are written that way, kind of throughout the ordinance, to be, well, they're complex, but they're understandable and they're easy to follow.
So with street lighting, I wonder how it affects our street lighting.
So we have a street lighting provision, and the main change here is just again on the color temperature. You see a lot of the LED conversions that you've seen maybe in other communities produce a very white, blue light in the, you know, and a lot of these communities are putting, I think the average is 5,000 to 6,000 Kelvin on that spectrum, and there's been a number of issues with that. One, people aren't used to that color outside. Some people like it because it seems crisper and cleaner, but it also creates more glaring conditions in that you have more contrast between the light and the dark. It also bleeds into these issues with blue light and your circadian rhythm. There's several other issues with, you know, that spectrum of color. And when these LED conversions first started happening, that was about the only option we had for LED lights. Now they can produce the more yellow, natural looking light, which is better for all those reasons. I could get deeper into it if we want to.
No.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we have met with the streetlight fabricator that creates our streetlights, and these changes are easily doable by them.
Most of our streetlights, I know some of them, our streetlights are converted yet or not?
I don't.
They don't work on that. You know.
Are they LEDs?
Yeah.
Our current streetlights.
The new ones we're putting in are the older ones in the Rocky Mountain Power lights that are, no. We never, apparently, this was before I got here, but we never went through with the LED change out.
Something to look at.
Well, I know they had to have a pump. There was a while that it didn't matter. There was no incentive. I mean, it was like they were charging us the same even regardless of what the bulb was. That was a little more expensive, but I'm glad to know that at least all the new ones we're replacing are.
Yeah, when you go with Rocky Mountain Power, they have a certain schedule you're paying on. We pay maintenance as well as power with Rocky Mountain Power. That's a schedule, a certain schedule.
Could you make our preference known to Rocky Mountain?
We can, but we would buy, we're not putting any new Rocky Mountain Power poles in. All of ours are city owned.
So if you change them to LED, the knob is, you would think that would save power.
They would require us to buy them, their infrastructure out to do things with that.
But in our meetings, we can just talk to them individually.
Sure.
I would think they would want to do that.
Yeah.
They offer business incentives where they come in and swap your license for you.
All right, any questions, further questions of Matt? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
We'll see you in a second. Let's invite Kim Horiuchi up to the table. Kim, come on up. Kim, do you know everyone?
I know a lot of you, and good to see some old friends. So.
Kim has been involved with the city from the very beginning in different relationships, especially when it comes to our newsletter. Kim is, what did you say, editor?
Yeah, freelance editor.
For Desert News and formerly a member of the County School District Board. Now we're using District One.
Yeah, and speaking of seasonal Christmas lights, this is like serendipity because I have been thinking for a long time that, and I'm just gonna throw it out there as an idea, but while I have the forum, but Christmas lights at Mount View Park would be so amazing because you look down, you can see all the Christmas lights, you could do as little or as much as you wanted, so anyway, just an idea.
That would be an ideal spot for Santa on the roof.
Would it? You could just do that little bit, or you could go all out and people could drive through the lights and
Well, we
anyway.
have a resident,
So-
we have a resident District One who does that type of lighting.
So, anyway,
Actually, the Christmas
might
light
be,
here comes from that.
might be kind of fun.
Oh, I remember doing Wheeler Farm years ago, and it was pretty popular. Okay, well, that's not up on money. All right, moving on to the agenda, we're gonna talk now about the communication plan that we've all been anxious to hear about, and some adjustments, and redesign the newsletter and website, et cetera. So I'll turn it over to Tim.
Okay. And I just want to reiterate, appreciate Kim's expertise and her willingness to work with us. She's a great member of our team when it comes to communication, and it's been so valuable to have her, especially as we're looking at the newsletter with her expertise in the design elements of it, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. I have just this amazing PowerPoint that I'm going to go through right now.
Okay.
And I also express appreciation to Matt Irvin there. He is going to be talking as well as part of this presentation related to the website and where we're going. So go ahead and let's go to the
Maybe too, we should let
first
people
slide.
know that Tim Berry, who would normally be here, is
He is out.
military.
Assignment right now, so he is out for a little bit. That's why he's not here. So anyway, there's been a lot of conversations that we've had, discussion in council about how we communicate to the public. If you read a little bit about the newsletter, the new newsletter that is out actually today, we talk about communicating in our city. It's such a valuable and important thing that we do, yet sometimes cities cannot hit the mark when they need to. It's something that we always want to improve in our community. But I want to highlight a few of the things that we do. As you're aware, the minimum requirement for communicating really is based on public noticing under state law, Utah Public Notice website. We have requirements that they make sure that we adhere to, they being the state, and that includes public notices, especially when we have required public hearings on land use issues or budget issues or a variety of other areas. There's minimum requirements that we have. We really work to exceed that, and once again, we always have to work to improve on this, but there are a variety of things that we do beyond just the minimum requirements. We obviously, the Utah Public Notice website, Paula gets all of the notices out to that website. It's a requirement, and we provide those in a timely manner. We provide information in our city newsletter, which we'll talk about. At times when we have big issues like the Wasatch Plan, a general plan, or issues related to Wasatch Boulevard, we have public open houses, and we've had those over the years. Educational events on issues as well. And then daily, we're dealing with social media, getting things out, which I'll talk about in a minute. We have email lists that people can sign up for on our website on multiple subjects. So it doesn't have to just be one general comment. It can be a general common theme on everything that we do, but they can also hone in on specific subjects that they can sign up on. We have media releases, notices that are posted at City Hall, and then event calendars on multiple platforms. Those are the things that we're doing right now and that we've done for a number of years related to communicating. So starting off with the pillars of communication, there are kind of 4 focus areas that we want to continue to enhance and improve upon. First is our social media channels. Obviously, timely information is an important part of that, that we found that when we get things out on social media, it has a very wide reach with people. It immediately gets into the Salt Lake media market. In fact, the minute that it gets out, a lot of times we'll have the media contact us within sometimes 15 minutes. As well as other government accounts such as Salt Lake County Emergency Services. When we're having issues like with our streams, or if there's any fire issues, and we put that out on social media, it automatically connects into these other emergency services so they see what is happening. And so we will continue to work on these social media elements and get the information out as quickly and in a timely manner. And so that's one of our main focus areas. Second is obviously our city website. So we've been working for a number of months. You approved a contract to place our website on a different platform. We've had a committee in place which has representatives from each department. Matt Urban's been very heavily involved in that, leading that effort, as well as Tim Beery. And our website, we're projecting, and I'll talk about this in a minute and show you kind of what it's going to look like. But the information we put on here is really critical. A lot of people access information here. We have our agendas, we have our job postings, our city events are on our website, and project spotlights. You see over here on this right-hand side, I'm facing, this is where you can go onto the website and put in for an email list if you want to be sent information on specific issues. You can do all of these issues, but this is the site, portion of the site that you can go in and sign up, and then you can get notices on everything if you would like. So those are examples of what our current website and email lists look like. Anything you want to add on that?
So with the new site, we focus pretty heavy on being able to find the information easier as well. So we have them ask them to focus on being able to get to everything within 3 to 4 clicks or less, and then a very heavy search functionality. So the search should be far more user friendly. Those are the 2 key things we asked for the initial changes, and then the last thing is making it very user friendly for tablets and mobile phones, since that's where the vast majority of traffic is coming from anyway, which we didn't currently have.
Yeah. So navigability is an important element of this, and speed is an important element, and then we are very pleased with where we will be at with the mobile phones. It's not a very good transition from the website to our mobile phones now, and that's what we'll see. If you want to go to the next slide. Then the newsletter. So
before you leave, I understand that we're going to have a public trial of this before.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute.
Yeah,
so I'm explaining what we have now and what we're doing, and then what we're going to be doing more on this. So with our newsletter, obviously, this is what it looks like right now. We're going to be looking at some changes in the format, style, the content elements of it. That's what Kim is really working with us on. It's going to be shifting to more of a central theme related to city business and Cottonwood Heights. Centric content such as upcoming council agenda items and determinations from the previous month on what we've approved in council meetings. Those are some of the things. And we're going to show examples. So you see what we have now, and we're going to go into examples in just a minute. Go ahead to the next. So moving to the website, this is what right now where we're at. This is the website. This is going to be the new look of the website. It's going to be, I guess, for lack of a better scientific term, less busy, and so it's going to be very basic and focused on, as Matt said, the 3 or 4 clicks you can get to where you want. It'll be faster. Our aim is to have easier access to information across both the mobile and desktop, and we're also, as you just mentioned, planning on having some residents come in before we go live on this and utilize the website. We'll have to do it here in City Hall because we're not going live yet, and give input on that. We're definitely going to have Kim. She's already one of our volunteers as a resident here that's going to be assisting with this, and we're going to have others come in to give us additional feedback before we go live. Our hope is October 1st will be the date that we'll go live. What else do you want to add on this?
I mean, I think you hit most of the highlights. We really asked them to focus on speed, mobility, and searchability, and then not having to go 5 and 8 and 10 clicks to get to things, so that people can get what they want when they want it. And we're also cleaning up a lot of the erroneous stuff that was never cleaned up from the old site. It was just migrated from the first to the second to the third.
Yeah, so adding to that, what you can do now is you can go on and search data that goes way back, and that's gonna change. People can still get that information, but it slows our website down significantly. And so, once again, as Matt has just mentioned, cleaning up the site, less historical elements. I mean, when you go back 10 years, you know, not a lot of people are looking for information back 10 years. And so, all the departments are working to
If we want a
get
picture
that
of
data.
Mike Watson 10 years ago, we can find.
You probably have to do.
Probably.
You
Better
probably
go
have
back
to do a
farther than
grammar
that.
request.
Uh-oh.
He's retiring pretty soon, we need to check that out.
I have a question, Tim.
Mhm.
Is there an example of a city that's using this website platform currently?
So Sandy paid a little extra and did a highly customized, but theirs was one of our ones that we liked, that gets this initial starting platform. I could probably get a list of 4 or 5 others that we looked at to start, but I'd have to look those up and send it to you guys.
This provider that we have has multiple
Hundreds.
cities that, and they're, it's kind of, a lot of them have different formats, so it's not like you're on this new platform and it's kind of their set format, because they make it work for every community. But Sandy is an example of one that uses.
They focus almost exclusively on cities and governments for their websites.
So Matt, so you have a couple that you could share with the council that are similar?
Yeah, we could look up, we asked them to provide us before we picked them for 5 or 10 examples to review, and then we were able to look at it on a desktop, a tablet, a phone, and reviewed it first. So I'll find those and get that to Tim.
And I'll send it to you.
Yeah, Kim, you wanna?
Oh, are you contracting with Granicus?
Yes.
Yeah, they're really good, they really know municipalities but they're not, you're not going to get a cookie cutter site. They really will tailor it to,
Customize it.
yeah, so,
Mhm.
good choice.
Thanks.
So anyway, those are the changes on the website. Hopefully more navigable. The mobile device will be much better
The speed is really,
in speed.
yeah.
So if you want to touch on that, so what they do, and we asked them about this, is instead of just having it at their site, they'll also, like, for different areas, they'll have a cache of information that'll be local, so when you're downloading it to your phone, there's a local cache, so it's not having to go as far across the internet, and it allows it to load much, much faster. So the speeds on their site were about the top we found as well.
The community group that will, focus group will look at this, how are you gonna select them? We have some individuals who are very concerned about this. Can we just have them come in?
Yeah, we have a list of
We
names.
know who they are.
We have a list of names of some that have expressed interest
Yeah,
in this.
yeah, I can do
Make sure someone like Tim.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not gonna bring in hundreds of people, but we're bringing in
No, just-
several to just look at it and see.
10 people, but I can think 3 or 4 who've constantly reminded us of the need to do this. Let them have a say, let them look at it.
Yep, yep, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, also, as part of our working with our website and our social media, we are also going to be looking at having a video series focusing on city matters. So as part of that, rather than just looking up information, we will have some video elements. For example, snow plowing, as we get closer to snowplow season, we'll have a video series, maybe with pictures and information showing possible footage on what you need to be working towards, educating the public on things.
I'm aware across the country, a lot of cities have done that, and it helps send a message. You know, it's like if you have a road, you've got cars parked on, the plow can't get through. You throw a video of what impact that has on the driver, yeah, it's powerful.
Shorter is better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Succinct.
Yep, and that's what we're gonna do with this video series elements. We'll get that moving probably more towards the November, December timeframe. But that's a plan that will be something different than what we've done, both on our website and social media elements as well.
3 to 5 minutes can be long unless you're really, really interested in it, and you do a shorter.
It could be 30 seconds.
Yep.
Yeah, could be, yeah. So anyway, then moving into our newsletter, some changes that we're going to be looking at, and this is where I'm gonna turn some time over to Kim. She is the expert on this matter, and we've looked at a different design that this is actually the design. You're seeing what potentially will occur related to our design on the front cover. But I wanna turn some time over to her and let her talk a little bit about what she's seen in other communities and what we're gonna try to implement, which her input's been invaluable.
Well, I think the new design gives a facelift to the current design, which the city's been using for 5 years. So it's time for an update. And I know, just being a resident of the city, I've heard just from my neighbors that they really like the information, but they've noticed that the pictures are small. Some of them are postage size. So this takes care of that. And I think Tim Berry was envisioning changing the picture on the front every month. So the picture not only serves as kind of a masthead identifier of the city, you know this is the city's newsletter, but it's fluid and it can change depending on what the issue that you're dealing with. And also, people are just intuitively, and I know that you did some polling probably 5 years ago as well, and I think it was like, I wanna say like high 70%, like 79% of residents said that they depended, for community news, they depended on the newsletter for community news. And I was gonna say, just intuitively, people just crave information about their community, that very local level news. And you know, we're seeing decline in newspapers just because of the business model, and it's just really difficult for newspapers right now. And so community news in a lot of cases have gone by the wayside as far as coverage. You probably don't see a news reporter at your city council meetings every week, and it may be, you know, a Valley Journal reporter, but definitely not the daily newspapers. They're just not covering city council meetings like they used to. But that doesn't mean that residents don't still want that news. And so cities themselves have, in a lot of cases, have had to fill that gap. And which is fortuitous for cities, because then you can push out the information that you want and that you need to convey to your residents without a filter. And so I think that was really what Tim Berry wanted to do with this redesign, was focus more on community news, what's happening in Cottonwood Heights. I think residents really want to know what their elected officials are thinking. That's what, when I look at the newsletter, I read the column first, and well, sometimes, most of the time I've already edited it, but when I do get it in the mailbox, I look at the column first, and what the elected officials are thinking, I think is the most important element of the newsletter. And so this redesign puts that column right up front, and then we also have that space at the top, and we thought we could put in a little blurb about what was discussed at city council meetings, what was decided at city council meetings, so that residents know that you're really working for them, that you care about the community. This is what's happening, and they have it right up front, and easy access to that primary information that they're looking for.
That's the council actions piece, so you're going to.
Yeah, and it's not gonna look like this. This is just.
As I say, it could be a little more.
Yeah, this is just showing you where we're going to place it.
Mhm.
We're gonna format it so it's different, but it'll be up in this front area is what we're looking at.
So I like this redesign proposal. It's modern, and it looks crisp and inviting.
It's a great improvement.
Yeah, you know what I like,
That's also
I really like the
someone who was
difference
never
of,
crazy about the last one.
rather than putting this on the side that's, you know, or something like that, to have the whole body of that first article front and present like that. I think that's a much better look. I do, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll focus on, as Kim said, those weekly meetings and then the updates and then redesign and refresh and kind of.
I think it looks more, I'm sorry, I cut you
No,
off.
go
It
ahead.
looks more like a newspaper, a little bit, rather than just a lot of little bits and
Yeah.
pieces. It doesn't seem quite so chopped up.
And there are studies that show that if you package information like news, it builds credibility. So
See,
that's an
yeah.
advantage as
That's,
well.
that's what I feel when I look at that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are the main things that we're gonna be focusing on. Obviously, the social media, the website, continuing with the newsletter, and having the video clips. All of these are elements of this plan that we'll be working towards here in the upcoming months. October 1st, hopefully with the website, if everything goes well. And then our newsletter, we'll probably be looking at either the October or November. Actually, it'll be the November, excuse me, when our new look will come out. And we're excited about these opportunities. There's always areas we can improve on. We recognize that. We'll keep striving to improve.
We'll always continue to change a little bit and evolve. So the focus group on the website will be in September then.
Yeah, September, we've been talking about it.
So we should have something to present with most, if not all of our content we're planning to migrate by around the 17th.
Yeah.
So we'll try and see if we can get that any sooner and then get it scheduled.
Yeah, we have to get everything ready for the website. We're still working on that. The 17th, we hope to have that between the 17th and the 1st. We'll have that input.
In fact, you're gonna launch October 1st, so.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm not leaving secure in my 7x7, 7 attempts to communicate over 7 different platforms on every key issue.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and we have 7 platforms that we're on, yeah, with that.
That's good mental job.
Conceptually, yeah. Just like, when you run a campaign, they do the same thing. You've got to.
Right, so
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Excellent. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear the feedback from the focus group as well. And Kim, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
my
much.
pleasure.
We appreciate you staying involved.
Good to see everybody.
Take care.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
thanks.
See you, Kim. All right, at 6 o'clock, we have a couple more items. We touched on this briefly, but maybe Shane, we can kind of come back and talk with you and Tim about the East Jordan Canal Trail. Kim, you may want to hear this.
Oh, what's that?
Matt, do you
Yeah,
have
I
that?
do.
Do you
Stay-
have
Now
that
what's happening?
picture?
The
trail.
You didn't like this.
Better look at the agenda.
I mean, one sec.
Me, Matt, or you, Matt?
This man.
You know, there's proposed trail that comes back to the back of Mountain View Park.
No, no one sent that to me, sorry.
That's all right.
You have inside.
So-
Who wants to introduce it?
I
So,
don't need it.
I can introduce it.
Okay.
As you know, a couple of months ago, maybe it's 3 months ago, we had a discussion about the Jordan Canal Trail, and we have funding that we were able to obtain to move forward with a trail along this area. It's not owned by Cottonwood Heights, it's owned by Salt Lake City, specifically their utility department oversees that. And with that, we would have to get their permission and have an agreement in place before we move forward. There's a precedent in doing that. They've done that in other locations with properties that they've owned. Murray is the most recent example. And so with this funding that we have that's available for this, we came to you and had a discussion about whether you want us to pursue that. And so you gave us the thumbs up to move forward. We have done that primarily negotiating with Salt Lake City Utilities. Laura Brief has been great to work with. And Shane has been working with their legal counsel. Matt Shipp has been heavily involved in this whole process as well. And so we have put together this agreement, working with them. There are a few elements that we're still trying to finalize, but we are proposing it tonight. It's really the first step in this process. The step will be having the agreement in place, working to get a design and outreaching to the neighbors. That's a key part.
I think that's the thing that I think we all agree to, subject to reaching out to the neighborhoods, which I think they'll applaud it, if I remember correctly, when we proposed it years ago.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we feel that's a key part, but we really couldn't move forward with that until we knew we could have an agreement in place with Salt Lake City, which is what we've worked on, which is what you will consider tonight related to this.
So this is the trail from,
Where's that from?
With the maintenance, it's gonna be us. definitely
So
gonna be.
there's some concern that we're not even maintaining Big Calmer Canyon Trail, and we're adding another one that we need to maintain. How come with other,
Well, no, you're absolutely right. The maintenance is critical, and the Big Cottonwood Canyon Trail that we're talking about, the city submitted a track request to make some improvements. Not so much not the routine maintenance, it's the loose, areas where the roots of the trees have pushed up the asphalt and needs to be replaced. We're doing that, and it's an ongoing responsibility we have as a city, and I think trails are not, in my opinion, they're not hard to maintain. You know, if they're constructed right, and have the right base and stuff. This trail we're proposing is really fairly small, but if we don't jump on every opportunity, they will be gone. This trail is strictly from Fort Union, at the insurance store place right there by where the canal comes underneath Fort Union. It just goes along just to, the back of Mountain View Park on the north is, how long is that, you think?
1,300 feet.
1,300 feet. It's fairly small, but it's a natural tie-in from, when you come out of Target and that whole development, cross street right there, you can walk over into the park, so, we'll see how the residents feel.
So also related to that, when we talk about, there'll be, you won't have as much of the issues with the tree roots on this, and like right now, it's just there, and this would be an opportunity for us to increase walkability on that as well.
long-range thinking when they pop out over by Super Target, is there something we can do to make that safe for bicycle and pedestrian?
I think that's all part of the talking about that, yeah. There's already a semaphore right there, and lighting and a crosswalk.
There's a crosswalk, yeah.
But, I know I was on Big Cottonwood Canyon Trail yesterday morning, I wanted to do my run, I ran up and all the way down that. I don't want people to think it's in horrible shape. I think what we're doing is we're being proactive, that there's some pieces that need some work on it. Everything above 30th East, I think, is still in excellent shape. I think where we have problems is the parts of the trail that are 10, 12 years old, down by the creek where we got some roots and stuff, but even that, it's just a few spots, it's not.
And that's been it's been being maintained, but this is getting more of a capital improvement.
Which is pretty
rather
routine
than
with
just kind of
any
a-
road or any trail or anything. We're just trying to get track funds to help do that, and, it was presented last Friday.
Friday.
And what was the amount of that request?
95?
Yeah, 95 for that, and then we had some wayfinding signage
Signage, which
as
is-
well.
Put in perspective, it's like an extra $100,000 beyond the normal maintenance budget.
Well, and there was even question on whether that was enough, as far as the maintenance, but, it's not a complete rebuild.
It's just those little portions where we've got those issues.
So
If
anyway.
you haven't been on that, I really encourage anybody to go on Canyon Trail, because now it connects under the freeway into, to Holiday into Caduceus Park, which is beautiful, and it connects to their trail system, so it's just wherever we can start get that connectivity, it's fine, but take away the maintenance is also an issue.
So anyway, that's the proposal. Tonight's the agreement. And Shane, do you wanna talk about elements that we're trying to work through with Salt Lake?
I think that the only thing that is under discussion still is that we thought we had come to agreement with them on the form of the agreement, and then they came back at literally the 11th hour and said, well, we have this little issue we're discussing internally, and what ultimately came back a day or two later was about a one-sentence change, and it had a couple of elements. One was that they wanted the city of Cottonwood Heights to basically monitor what's going on with the trail and their surrounding, Salt Lake City's surrounding ground on each side of the trail. As in terms of third-party encroachments onto that, if somebody's building a fence out onto Salt Lake City's property or some sort of other improvement relating to their backyard, why Salt Lake City feels like Cottonwood Heights, part of the deal should be that Cottonwood Heights tells Salt Lake City that this has happened so that something can be done about it, on the theory that we're here and they're not. We are regularly inspecting it or using it or maintaining it, and they are not. And so I don't think that's an issue for us. We're willing to do that. But the other issue is where we seem to be stuck a little bit. And the verbiage that they provided kind of implied to me that they were expecting Cottonwood Heights to then go ahead and enforce against these encroachments. My feeling is it's Salt Lake City's ground. Cottonwood Heights is just getting a license to use this, a revocable license essentially to use the trail that'll be built on the surface of this canal. That is, in terms of real property interests, a fairly minor type of interest in the real estate in comparison to fee title, which is owned by Salt Lake City. So I changed their sentence a bit from what they had proposed and said, yeah, Cottonwood Heights will do its best to monitor it, will promptly inform Salt Lake City if any encroachments are noted, and then we will cooperate with any efforts by Salt Lake City to enforce their property right against these encroachments. And so that's kind of where we are. They have not accepted that change yet. They're still thinking about it, and so that's why I added in the resolution the provision that we can tweak the agreement a little bit as needed as we complete these negotiations with Salt Lake City. They're being very cooperative, and I think we'll be able to work through this in the next few days.
Yeah, we have a good working relationship with them. In fact, Laura called me today, Laura Griefer, who's the director, and assured us that they're working through it and trying to get it back to us as soon as possible. So.
She's great to work
Just
with.
as just kind of a side, as far as that, noticing what's going on, I assume this will probably be added to the contract we have with, would you guys be doing it, or would we just have a contract for the rec center?
We still have to work that through.
Okay, well, I mean, if we
It's,
do,
I think
it's
do it to
it's
them,
a
we should
once
make sure
every
they should
two,
be aware.
it's really only a once, 2, maybe 3 times a year mow is what it is, so we may just take it.
But I think every year we will evaluate all of the maintenance.
I mean, just if we're passing that on, whoever's there needs to know, you should be looking for this, so that we can, solve that announcement.
Okay,
That's all we have unless there's questions.
any discussion on that? I know we went through this 2 months back. Yeah,
Well,
I think you'd be interested in
Yeah,
that.
no, I think that my neighbors, I'll use that. Right now, we don't use it because there's kind of wood chips down there, but it's so weedy. If you walk your dog or whatever, I mean, it's gated off on one part, but if you walk your dog, you get all birds and.
I actually think it
it's
would be
not- Yeah, so this will
interesting.
be a lot nicer.
It would be, I've been on it, I think that would be fun for the council, make a little field trip someday before a meeting, take 3 of us, go down and look at it. Because it's like the Big Cottonwood Canyon Trail, you walk the whole thing, and you feel how it's used, and you see all the uses on it, the same thing here, when you walk that was, I was gonna get excited that it can make a difference.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I have it on my list to have us do that. I was thinking sometime in January would be.
Snow shovels.
We'll get a sled or some dogs.
As it goes east, how much is covered and is not from that point?
The pipe, how much is piped?
Yeah.
Just down to about the tennis courts, just if you go north of the tennis
I'm
courts.
talking about, yeah, you go further east from there. Is it just open?
It's open ditch at that point.
Okay, so that from there on,
From there on,
past the church.
the
and
trail would,
building
yeah, the
open.
trail would turn back into Mount View Park.
So I understand, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking
Yeah,
like
it's
way
open
out
from there.
In the future.
But as this develops and they continue to pipe, this gives us an avenue to continue the trail as it goes
And the other
along.
one is, I mean, if you wanted to, if you were a pedestrian or bicyclist who was trying to avoid Fort Union, you can get off there either at the park or there's a circle that's right there. And then you can continue on through residential streets as opposed to the collectors.
A good way to it'll be a good way to access the back of the park too.
Okay, thank you on that issue.
One last
Stand
one.
around,
Kim,
Kim.
one more question, just because she probably, is there just the one entrance to the neighborhood? There's one on the west side out of that circle, is there just the one on the north side getting across the canal into the
behind Deb's house, can you get in?
To the park?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
there's that little pathway that's left from the school.
And that's close to the tennis courts, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's one that's closer out, way out over by that circle.
The
Is there
east
one
side, on the
in
east
kind of
side.
that corner?
Well, yeah, just that main street, the main street, well, actually, there's two streets that go into it on the east side.
But as we progress, we'll continue to look at that access.
We'll schedule a time,
Yeah.
soon, in the next couple of months to get this out there, just. to
Especially
schedule
too,
one.
if we can have the food trucks there all summer rather than just 1 month, that might be.
Yeah.
I'm in support of that.
I am. All right, thank
Okay,
you, Kim,
thank
have a,
you,
have a
thank
nice
you.
night. Okay, Mike, let's talk about Wasatch Boulevard planning efforts.
Yeah, this is just a quick update on what's starting next week with UDOT. I think you've received updates in your council communications. There's also an announcement in the city newsletter that should be out now. So UDOT has organized what's called a design charrette for Wasatch Boulevard. This starts next week, but it's a 2-part design activity. So I'll go over what we're hoping to accomplish with this next week, and then we'll go from there. But they will arrive on September 10th, so next Tuesday. We'll hold a kickoff meeting, and then they want to do a corridor tour. So go out and drive and walk portions of Wasatch Boulevard, get a feel for it. We'll accompany them on that, and that'll be the first day. They'll be taking photo inventory, taking note of constraint points, opportunities, potential things
So
like
again,
that.
this is UDOT's contract is doing this.
Yes, yeah, so UDOT contracts with HDR, who's the firm that is actually also doing the EIS, but they have a design team. And they're not local, they're coming in, but they have a team that, they go around the country and they just do these. That's what they do. So they're flying in. So the 10th is kind of a kickoff meeting and inventory of the area, kind of boots on the ground.
Was this, sorry, so
Mhm.
is this anticipation of our Wasatch Boulevard plan being done? Is it subsequent to? or-
This is kind of a result of it.
Okay.
This is when John Thomas came in and talked to us about how they're gonna look at Wasatch as a gateway. This is what lays the groundwork for that.
I'm
So
just not used to UDOT sometimes working within the
Right.
space
So
of
this,
4 weeks.
that's what's new, is the
Right.
willingness to.
No, that's good. I just wanna make sure I
Yeah.
understood.
So, yeah, they did organize this
That's
pretty
awesome.
quickly after,
That's awesome.
after the public feedback. And then on the 11th, that's the big, the stakeholder day and the public, I call it open house, but it's not quite an open
They
house.
may meet, they also meet with us that day.
Throughout the day, they have, most of the day set aside to conduct stakeholder interviews. So 45 minutes each, each of the council members, and you're invited for that. I've got 3 scheduled already. So yeah, that's where they're gonna sit down with each stakeholder and talk through the corridor, what you envision, what your concerns are, the whole thing. And they'll take note of that and take notes there. In the evening, from 5:30 to 8:30, they're holding their design charrette. And rather than an open house where you can kind of come and go anytime you want, this is a guided 3-hour session. So residents are asked to show up at 5:30 and they'll be there the whole time. And the project team will provide an overview of what this process is. And then they'll do a bunch of different exercises, probably break the room into groups. They'll do an analysis, it's called a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Pretty standard in these kind of planning activities as it relates to design and aesthetics and things like that. And then they do a round robin kind of report of what each group has identified in that. They will then do a mapping exercise where they'll have maps on each table and kind of your standard open house type thing. Just getting information down for those groups to help develop kind of an ideal aesthetic and look and feel for the corridor. After that, they'll pack up and they'll go, and then they'll come back in October after they have time to digest and provide summaries and write-ups of all the feedback and inventory they take. And in October will be, I'm a little light on details, a 2 to 3 day, they're calling it a pinup session, or pinup workshops, where they will just put different design things on display. And there will be the opportunity for staff, for council members, for stakeholders, and for the public to come in and provide additional feedback. But that second phase is based on the feedback received in this first phase
So
next
the
week.
night of the 11th, the
Mhm.
night of the 12th, it's the same both nights, there's two
No.
different groups?
There's not, so the only activity is, the only public activity this first time around is on September 11th.
The 5:30, 8:30?
5:30 to
Oh, I
8:30.
misunderstood. I thought it would do 5:30, 8:30 also on the next night.
No, so they will leave on the 12th. So next week it's just the 10th, where just at a staff level, we'll take them around. And then the 11th will be stakeholder interviews and design charrette. I believe the phase 2 in October will have multiple nights. They'll have the same boards up multiple nights here at City Hall for public to come in and provide.
And the scope, is this from the freeway exit all the way down to the canyon?
I believe this
Or
is
city
just
boundaries?
Big Cottonwood south, and then north of that will be captured in their design process that's scheduled for November, specific for the transit hub envisioning. And it'll be the same group doing that, a similar type process, maybe a little different, but we'll look at the northern portion of Wasatch at that time.
So from canyon to canyon, kind of.
Yeah, at the end of all of these design charrettes, we'll have a canyon to canyon idea of what the design should be. The intention here is to look at aesthetics and design and landscaping and amenities that will then become the design standard. That the EIS will come in later, and they'll have another public scoping session where we talk about the capacity and the speed and everything else, and they know clearly where we stand on that. But then whatever the EIS concludes, this design will just be applied to whatever alternative is chosen through the EIS.
I think the biggest challenge is gonna be for constituents to understand on the night of the 11th,
Mhm.
What
that it's
is
a
it they
3-hour
needed?
commitment.
Yeah,
And we do clarify in the newsletter, we hope that message gets
What
across.
what I'm wondering is if there's people that members of the council know where you can invite them.
Mhm.
There's some people who were involved previously, or if you from the planning, to get, just to invite some constituents to be in attendance.
Yeah.
It's important, it's an opportunity, yeah.
And that should be emphasized in a tweet or Facebook post.
All
as well.
those.
Yeah, I
All
was
those
thinking it was more of an
7
open
posts.
house. I figured I'd come in and look around and
Yeah.
then go home and.
I think a lot of people just.
Apparently I'll get
that'll
swatted
be
if
their
I-
quick response, yeah,
Is
I'll
this
come
the-
by.
Yeah, so we have, it's right on the front page here. And we do say in here,
I understand, but it's still.
Yeah. they're encouraged to attend, it will be a 3-hour session. We have,
But a 3-hour session that they need to stay the whole thing.
right.
A lot of people think it's just 3 hours that I can come and go, yeah.
So UDOT is also sending out a very similar announcement through their public relations channels. We will be announcing this on social media probably in the next couple days. This will be on the website, and then we can look at other ways. We could use the website's email notification to provide a similar notice.
Yeah.
So we'll do a weekend, and we'd recommend any way you communicate with constituents to do the same. This process is the result of our planning efforts, so it's important to get as many people here as we can.
Is there a cap on how many they?
No, I don't think so. We have the large room set aside, that can hold.
Probably means 300.
Well, yeah, that can hold about 100 people, and I think if we needed, we could probably spread out into other rooms.
Yeah, we'll be fine with that. I just hope we have a representative group there, yeah.
There, we have heard, some of our residents that are tuned in are aware of this and are spreading the word.
Good.
So I think the word's getting out there.
Yeah, because
Hopefully
word
this
gets
helps a
out
lot.
and, yeah.
But we're looking forward to it. We'll be right up there with UDOT, so this will be very much a collaborative process between us and them.
And you'll schedule with each of us, yeah, more for that day and time.
Yeah, so we have, Councilmember Bruce and Councilmember Bracken are already scheduled. Councilmember, Michael is also scheduled, and so we'll just get you,
I'll just fit me in.
the 2 o'clock works, and we have you at 10?
10.
Yeah, I think you moved it, because I think Christine said that she needed to be
Yeah,
there.
she
That's
needed
fine,
one.
I just needed one.
We'll get a
Just fill me
time.
up, yeah, let me know.
We'll get a time for you and then
That's
Councilmember
So just plan for those, I'll send out a calendar invite for each of you, but, those will be here, so you'll just come in, we'll have a room set aside, and you'll just meet the project team. And then I will keep you updated through council communications as I find out more about the second phase of this in October, and then the transit hub version of this that will be in November. So the next 3 months, we'll have
That's gonna be a lot.
a lot of opportunity for public feedback. And then our plan with this also, I should mention, is to kind of take the results of this charrette process and take it to other advocacy groups like the County Bicycle Advisory Committee, UTA, others that may not be here fully participating, but provide that feedback and then get their input and their recommendations as well, and try to incorporate all of that.
Have you maybe extended an invitation to some of those groups, at least let them know next Wednesday it's happening?
Yes, we have.
So, that would be,
Yeah, there's a couple.
those would be, some of the people, like, someone from the county.
Or the
something
county's
like that
trails
would probably-
committee, the county's bicycle committee.
Would love to, great to send somebody and have them
Right.
offer the
Right.
perspective.
Yep.
We even have neighboring cities who have interest in the impacts there.
We'll continue this week to get the word out as much as we can in all the different avenues. Stress that, be here at 5:30 and plan to stay the night.
Well, don't stay the night.
There's snacks.
Stay the evening, let's say that.
You got snacks and stuff going in there?
We'll see, I think they did talk about that, I think they will have some
You gotta
refreshments.
keep people for 3 hours, you at least don't give them a drink.
I'll just push it.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I'm glad to see that, move ahead. All right, looking at your agenda, we have, the next item is just some calendar of upcoming events. Before Bark in the Park, we actually have Utah League of Cities and Towns, which is next week. It's not on here, but for those who are registered for that. Then we have Bark in the Park. Yeah. We have,
Yeah, I'm just gonna show up.
Station 110, Mike, good breakfast.
Yep, we're very excited about
You can
that.
get pancakes and then go look for hot dogs.
You can get- yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Station 110. We have the art show, reception at City Hall, and the art show awards at City Hall. That's coming up in October. Then Rhythm in the Heights at the middle school, also from our arts council. Monster Mash at the rec center, it's part of our Halloween celebration, I guess. It's in the ice rink in the gymnasium, it's kind of a carnival atmosphere. November 5th, we have the general election, we'll find out the council seats that are contested. Invite the Heights on December 2nd. Is there anything else that we need to include on here?
The October 8th is Tuesday between the two council meetings, is dinner with the youth council, dinner with the council. Department heads Tuesday.
You asked a lot of good questions.
And all former departments have said they enjoyed it, so you're invited, and hopefully you will.
Okay, any counter items? All right.
All counter items.
All right. Moving on, item number 4, anything we discussed in closed session, you want to update us on? You probably should real quickly, on the 2 pending litigations. Yeah.
Before we do that, can I ask, I had a question of Matt, and I apologize if you're not. On the Highland Drive project with the traffic control, are they waiting until that's done before they make adjustments to the timings, or is that kind of a live thing that's going on?
It's live, we're adjusting a little bit at a time, mornings and evenings, we're making adjustments on the
It
heavy.
seemed like, I mean, I haven't been in their mornings, any idea how that's going? Is anybody who drives?
I haven't been out there, we made the adjustments, I think, last
this
week.
morning going north, they just really felt it was highly congested.
It,
I don't know.
I
don't
made a
know if
note,
it's just- I don't know if it's the cones or just the narrowing. hung
concerned
before
because it
the
goes to the
fence.
2 lanes.
That's the one.
But on I mean, as I thought about it and looked at it, it's, Highland Drive is 2 lanes all the way out. I mean, coming out through Sandy and all the way up over the top of the hill, it has been that way. But I also watched, as I've come off freeway headed south, and I'm looking way up the hill, say, well, there's a big old batch of cars that's coming, what's gonna happen? How many of them actually get through the intersection? And it's actually, at least the times I have seen it, which have been 6:30, and stuff at night, that part of it actually seems to be working. That's why I was asked if the
Yeah,
timings have been being made, because it
we're
seems
making
like it's-
adjustments to the signal timing right now.
Let's let them
We're-
get it finished and.
Yeah,
it's
we're
been
playing with it a
It's been
little
a long
bit.
summer and the project's taken too long personally.
But I mean, I've heard those, haven't observed it yet, and I haven't also gotten up and gone down there.
Well, part of it.
7:30 in the morning to watch
The
it.
cones are up and down. I appreciate last weekend when they weren't working, they
Right.
took the cones down. There were some weekends they left them up, so it was pretty smooth through the weekend.
That was, and people are starting to get used to the new on-ramp movement.
Yeah.
Which is,
Is it finally open?
it was over the weekend, yes. You could get on the.
Yes,
take
you
the
could.
two-
There was a point, you could get on there over the weekend. But they've closed it down again because they're adding some barriers.
Because at the end was.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. Let's move into a closed session for pending litigation just for a minute if we can.